Welcome back to Plant a Dye Garden. This episode is all about preparing your site for planting some dye plants. I started my seeds 2 weeks ago, and while I'm waiting for the seedlings to grow and be ready for the outdoors, this is a good time to start digging in the ground. If you're wanting to plant a dye garden and haven't quite got started yet, go back to the beginning of this series. I'll have a link to the playlist below this video, and you can start from the beginning with getting your seed starting equipment and planting your seeds. And then while you're waiting for those seeds to sprout, you can start working on the planting site. There are 3 things you want to consider when choosing a site for a dye garden: sun, soil, and water. The dye plants love full sun, so that means 4 to 6 hours of full sun every day, at least. So if you have more than that, that's fine too. When it comes to soil, you want it to have a quality where it can absorb water, but not hold it and pool. So if your water pools, it probably means there's a lot of clay in your soil. If it doesn't hold water and it just drains away quickly, that means there's a lot of sand in your soil. The ideal soil, it has a lot of organic matter in it. The Gophers did a good job of giving us an example of some loamy soil. So if you look closely here, if you squeeze it, it kind of holds together somewhat. If this was wetter, it would hold together a little bit more. But it's not sticky, it's crumbly. And it has that kind of nice, dark, rich earth look to it. If your gardening site is on land that has been graded, for example, in a subdivision, usually all the topsoil has been removed. And in that case, you'll need to bring in some topsoil. You can call around to nurseries and home centers where they sell bulk materials for gardening and ask if they have that. Additionally, if you can get a hold of some compost, that is an ideal way to top off your soil. If you have that nice loamy soil that we talked about, you might just want to plant straight into the ground. Otherwise, it might be easier to have a raised bed or container that you can fill with purchased topsoil and compost. One of the advantages of containers and raised beds is that you can exclude critters like gophers, for example, that sometimes come up through your garden and eat the roots of your plants. To do this for a raised bed, you want to lay some hardware mesh on the ground beneath the edges of the frame of the raised bed. If you're using a container, then such as this one right here, it already has a barrier because it's a complete container. The thing you need to make sure of is that there's a drainage at or very near the bottom, so that when it rains, your tub doesn't just fill up with water. The last important thing we need to talk about is water. Now, with a small garden such as this one, it is possible to hand water. You have to be pretty dedicated to do that. Plan on 2 to 3 days a week of coming out and watering your plants. The other option, which is a little more work up front, but definitely saves you time and energy later, is to put in a drip system. And they don't have to be complicated. Something as simple as a soaker hose wending its way through your plants will be sufficient to water your garden. If you've never worked with drip systems before, it might be helpful to take a look and see what they look like. This is my setup here. This white pipe is connected to a controller that is connected to our main water line. This could also be a water spigot.
and you use these connectors here to connect your drip line tubing to your spigot or your pipe. And down here I'll show you where we start branching off. You see this little elbow? It is connecting a 1/4 inch soaker hose to the main drip line. And I'll show you around on the other side how I've laid it out. Basically, I just made a spiral of soaker hose winding around the planter. And I just make sure that when I plant my plants in there, they are close to some of the drip tubing. The tubing is about 4 to 6 inches apart. Here is another way to lay it out. I've created a T with the soaker hose using a T fitting instead of an elbow.
You could also choose to use bubblers. So I have a little ring of lettuce here, and when you get close, you can see a little bubbler, and it connects by an elbow to this 5/8 inch line. So there's different ways to do it depending on your preference. Well, I guess I'd better quit talking and get to work. This is definitely the hardest part of the whole process, but I think I'll sleep good tonight. Just one more note on gardening size. This is supposed to be about a 4 by 8 foot gardening plan that I'm doing here. I may adjust the length or width a little bit depending on the space, but if you don't have that much space, use the space you have. Even if you only plant 1 to 3 plants, you can definitely still do some dyeing projects with that or some eco printing projects. So don't let space be the limiting factor. All right. You see me digging up rocks here. While I do like the looks of a rock border, it's not necessarily a recommendation because rocks are heavy and they're really difficult to weed under. So that's my take on rocks. I probably will do another rock border, but try to weed better next time. All right, rocks are out. I'm going to have to move this bush. I'm going to trim it back a little bit so it's easier to deal with. And I also am going to pull out my drip hose so that I don't chop it up while I'm digging the weeds out. Look what I found. Might still be good. I think I'm going to eat it. All right, I've removed rocks and that big bush, and I've just got to work on all these weeds now. I'm going to be loosening up the soil and tearing out those weeds for a while, I think. I might have to continue this job tomorrow morning as well. Whew, all right. I've been at it an hour. This is something that's going to have to take place in small increments over several days. And if you are building a raised bed and filling it, that may be the best tactic for you as well, to take it in stages. in the meantime, let's get a look at what the seedlings are doing right now. All right, here are the seedlings after 2 weeks. They're looking pretty good. I did have to make one adjustment here. I noticed that some of them were looking a little bit leggy. They were getting kind of tall and leaning towards the light and looking a little weak. So I thought that they needed more light. So I raised this whole tray by putting some blocks underneath it to bring everything up closer to the light. Now, if you have lights hanging from a chain, you could just choose to lower the lights a little bit if you notice your seedlings looking leggy. So we've got some marigolds in the back there. I've got a couple of hollyhocks now. They're taking longer to sprout. So far, I don't see any indigo, so I may end up replanting them. I'm going to give them just 1 more week to see if there's any progress. They do, according to the package, take 10 to 21 days, I think it was. That might be something there, but I'm not sure. But the purple basil is looking great. My 2 different types of coreopsis, beautiful. And the scabiosa is also looking robust. Now at this point, what I'm looking for is for the first true leaves to appear. These are, I don't know what you call them, but these initial 2 leaves are not the true leaves. So I want to see those coming in. Once the true leaves are there and these have gotten a few inches tall, I'll start hardening them off so they can be transitioned to the garden. And you'll notice these coreopsis, which had such tiny seeds, and I just sprinkled them onto the soil. There's a lot of them. They're kind of crowded together, but for now I'm going to leave them and see which ones become most hardy, and then I'll pinch out the excess. At this stage, you also want to be checking your soil to make sure it feels damp, but you don't want it to look overly wet. It shouldn't be soggy when you press on it. And I've just been, as needed, adding water into the tray, but not so much that it's just standing in water all the time.
If you watched my episode on starting seeds for a dye garden, you may be wondering what happened to the sunflower seeds. And you can see here that they became leggy and started falling over. Typically, sunflower seeds are planted directly in the garden versus starting them ahead of time inside. But I had tried starting them inside anyway, and it obviously did not work out. They outgrew the seed cells within 1 week. You can see the roots coming out the bottom, and they simply did not get enough light. I tried potting them up, but within the week they were clearly not going to revive. So I will be saving some room in the garden when I start planting the seedlings and make a little space to direct seed my sunflowers. In the next episode, I'll be going over my garden plan and giving alternatives as well if you don't have a 4-foot by 8-foot space to plant in. I'll be giving you a short list of dye plants if you have only space for 1 to 3 plants. Be sure to catch the next video by subscribing to my channel.
Was this video useful, enjoyable, or inspiring? If so, please like and subscribe. This helps more people find it. Also, make sure to catch the whole Dye Garden series by finding the playlist. The link is in the description below. And I also have some downloadable resources for you.